Many of us are familiar with the event known as the Munich Massacre, when 11 Olympic athletes were taken hostage by terrorists during the 1972 Munich Summer Olympics. The story of the rescue attempt is worth a read in and of itself, a highlight of incompetence being when one of the German snipers, who was in actuality just a guy who shot competitively on the weekends and had no formal training or no actual precision rifle, had a clean headshot on the leader of the terrorist group, but he hit another terrorist in the leg instead, and, spoiler alert, all of the hostages were killed. After this humiliating, massively public disaster of a rescue, the world superpowers started refining their domestic special forces tactics and units. In Germany, the tragedy brought about the world-famous GSG-9 German counterterrorism branch and sparked a revolution in small arms, including the so-called Munich Trio, the Walther P5, the Sig P6, and the famed H&K P7 pistols. Other countries, such as the French, took the opportunity to use Germany's example as a moment to revisit and reflect upon their own domestic counterterror policies, personnel, and equipment, and as a result, the GIGN was born. Oddly enough, because they are French, the GIGN is one of the most elite counterterrorism units in the entire world. Made up of only 400 operators, the GIGN have a flawless track record of 1,800 publicly known missions, rescuing anywhere between 600 to 1,300 hostages, depending on who you ask. Their most famous declassified operation was perhaps during Christmas of 1994, when the GIGN executed a picture-perfect rescue mission of a hijacked Air France plane. An important component of their success was the fact that on their way to the mission, they flew the exact same type of plane that had been hijacked, and they rehearsed the exercise on their way to rescue the actual plane. And certainly another component of their success was their equipment, their gear. The traditional sidearm of one of the most elite units in the world is perhaps one of the most elite revolvers in the world, the Manurhin MR73. Yes, this gun was used in the mission, not like carried on the hips of men who were walking around with MP5 submachine guns. No, these revolvers were actually used to body terrorists hijacking an international flight. At least 3 of the terrorists had their tickets to paradise punched, not by Eddie Money, but by .357 Magnum. The Manurhin MR73 was explicitly developed for the French GIGN. Its accuracy and durability are perhaps unmatched for a service revolver, or for that matter, for a service pistol. The GIGN insisted that the MR73 be able to withstand a daily regimen of 150 rounds of .357 Magnum during training, with each revolver firing over 40,000 rounds of Norma 158 grain .357 Magnum per year. Legend has it that at least one MR73 has gone over 1 million rounds without a major parts failure, and another example reportedly had 170,000 rounds through it, and it still looked like it was brand new. Not only are they durable, but every MR73 is match-grade accurate, and the revolver's tested to be capable of firing a .8-inch 15-round group at 25 yards at the factory by a gunsmith. Each MR73 also undergoes 12 hours of hand fitting at the factory. Perhaps less importantly, the Manurhin's one of the most beautiful revolvers in the world. With a deep bluing that's so well done, it has a mirror finish that looks almost like black hard chrome. The top of the frame and the barrel is matte black and serrated to prevent the light reflecting into the shooter's eyes when using the sights. Heat treating of the steel and the trigger and the hammer also give it a contrasting gold tone. Let's talk about the specs and the features before we get to my review straight from Thunder Ranch. As mentioned, the MR73 owes its excellent accuracy to 2 things. First, it's got a cold hammer forged barrel that's among the best for service pistols. The barrel's rifling is formed during forging, meaning that the barrel's not rifled as a separate, later component of the process. This means that the rifling is going to be more durable and it's going to be microscopically smooth. The frame and the cylinder are machined from forged billet steel. The steel's been procured from the same source since 1973 through an internationally known steel specialist. The cylinder's chambers are smoothened and hardened. The MR73 is factory-proof fired with .357 Magnum that is 30% overpressured, and the MR73 simply brushes that off because the MR73 can reportedly handle up to double the power of a standard .357 Magnum load without damaging the gun. It should go without saying, but don't try that at home. Chances are you won't though, because if you can afford one of these motherfuckers, you are not FUD enough to do something like that. But we'll get to that part of it in a second once you're mentally prepared for the bad news about the MR73. But let's continue with more of the good stuff. The MR73 has an adjustable trigger weight in both double and single action mode. Importantly, adjusting the trigger weight doesn't weaken the strength of the main hammer spring, so reliable ignition is still virtually guaranteed, even if you tweak the trigger a little bit. All MR73s feature an over-travel screw that's built into the trigger, as well as a hammer force adjustment screw and a hammer spring weight adjustment screw built into the frame. The LPA target adjustable rear sight allows the shooter to make micro adjustments for wind and elevation as needed. The French Trouche grips are oddly unsatisfying from an aesthetic perspective, a little like mud tires on a Maserati. But you have to remember that this is a working service pistol, and it's in that department that these Trouche grips excel. While they're not much to look at, these grips do sap up recoil like you wouldn't believe, and the grips actually provide, well, grip. Unlike the usual endangered Cambodian black rhino ivory stocks that you find on most guns in this price range. If you want the perfect blend of functionality and aesthetic, I'd suggest maybe checkered walnut nil grips, but I don't think I'd be in a rush to change the Trouche grips. So the big news today is that Beretta will be importing at least 2 models of the Manurhin MR73 starting on May 7. The MR73 Gendarmerie 4-inch, I probably butchered that, and the MR73 Sport 5 1/4-inch, which is the model they sent me for testing and evaluation. Both are going to be chambered in .357 Magnum with a capacity of 6 rounds each. The 4-inch model will have an overall length of 9.2 inches and 34 ounces in weight, while the 5 1/4-inch barrel will be 10.4 inches long total and weigh just shy of 37 ounces. While it's a little heavy for my taste, I think wheel gun people could legit CCW the 4-inch version, and according to Beretta, most K-frame holsters will indeed fit. We tried this out at Thunder Ranch, and lo and behold, the MR73 fit one of Clint Smith's personal custom leather K-frame revolver holsters like it was made for this gun. HKS and Safariland even make speed loaders that'll work with the MR73. So enough with the dry history and the specs. Let's get wet. Let's get a little down and dirty at Thunder Ranch. I took the MR73 to Thunder Ranch, and the first person to shoot this gun was none other than Clint Smith himself.
Nice.
Clint and Heidi Smith took turns pinging a 5'8" man silhouette target at 100 yards.
Yeah, like that. Got him.
In double action. Myself and Ryan joined in, as well as everyone's favorite Appalachian, Johnny B. Hits were easy whether we were sitting, standing, double action, single action, whatever. I would safely say that this gun loaded with .357 Magnum is effective against a man-sized target within 100 yards.
Yep. There it is. See, now I know.
Ryan even made standing one hit on the 5'8" man target at 200 yards.
Oh my God!
And he will not let anyone forget about it for the rest of our miserable careers together. Now, much of that accuracy has to do, of course, with the trigger. The single action trigger is great, but that's not really a big deal, is it? I mean, there are a lot of guns that cost a third or a quarter of the price of the MR73 that have a single action trigger probably just as good as the MR73. No, the money is in the double action trigger, which is unparalleled as it relates to any other double action trigger I've probably ever reviewed for this channel. There's no creep, there's no grit, there's no over travel, there's no take up, there's no nothing. It's just one smooth gas pedal of a trigger. And here's kind of the big shock. At 7 yards, Ryan and I shot the single action pretty well. We were shooting 1-inch groups at 7 yards, but we shot the double action better. I don't know why that is, but we were dumping an entire cylinder into 1-inch groups with the single action, but into 1 or 2 small holes in double action.
So you can see here, this is the first group I ever shot with the M73, and this was single action, right? You know, everybody likes to shoot single action. It's easier. It's like a little cheating. This is 7 yards. I was like, okay. And then Ryan came in, and he did this one, single action, pretty solid group. Then I shot all double action. So this is my second group ever with the gun, 7 yards. I threw this one a little bit, but these 5 are all easily within an inch. Third group that I've shot with this gun ever, double action only, 357 Magnum. Here's a little 4-leaf clover right here, and then another pair right next to it. Almost all in one hole, just 2 little separate holes. Incredible. All right, Ryan, don't be shy. Don't be shy. It's okay to brag on yourself a little bit.
All right, MR73, 357 mag, double action, from, what did you say that was?
7 yards.
7 yards. One hole.
That's fantastic. This is a gun made for poppin' terries, and what that means is if you're using this gun in self-defense or in the line of duty, then you don't have the leisure of cocking the hammer with every single round. Thus, the double action is undoubtedly essential to the effectiveness of the MR73 as a service revolver, right? As a duty revolver. My measurements indicated a unreal 8-pound double action trigger, which is probably lighter than most tourist semi-automatics. The single action's just a tick over 3 pounds from the factory, and remember, you can adjust these. The manipulation was cake, the cylinder release buttons, the superior push-forward Smith & Wesson style, and the crane swings out like it wants you to jam it full of hot 357 mag. When you're done shooting, the ejector does its job, and the casings effortlessly slide out of the glass-like chambers in the cylinder. Recoil reduction with the French Trouche grips, of course, like I said, was excellent. 38 felt like a pop gun. I mean, it was virtually like a step above a 22. Full power 357 Magnum was beyond manageable. This is a gun that needs to be shot for you to believe it. And again, the aesthetics are totally out of this world. It's Rolex-like construction. The bluing is so smooth and glassy that it's impossible to touch the gun without smudging it. Your greasy fingerprint serving as a visible reminder that this revolver is too good for your filthy mortal paws. In other words, this is possibly the finest and most precise handgun I think I've ever reviewed since the beginning of TFB TV. And it's with that ringing endorsement, you are now prepared for the bad news. You know what it is. This gun cost $3 grand. I don't know what you expected. I'll tell you what I expected. I expected $2,500. That was the number I'd picked out after reviewing this gun over the past few weeks, but I'm not really shocked by a $3,000 number. I checked Beretta's marketing materials today, and nope, it's not $2,500, it's $3,300. We'll see what street price is, but as we sit here today, the gun is only in Beretta's New York City and Dallas boutique stores. But next week, you could see these showing up at dealers. But you have to remember that the main reason for the sky-high cost is the thing's built like a Swiss watch, and 12 hours, guys. 12 hours of hand fitting and hand polishing by 5 master gunsmiths employed by Manurhin. Manurhin techs deburr and polish the frames. These wheel gun Jedi hand fit and adjust all of the MR73's mechanical parts, the barrel, they adjust the ejectors, they hand fit the sights and the stocks. A live human being test fires each gun to ensure that they're going to get 15 rounds of 357 Magnum into a 0.8 inch group at 25 yards. And with that, the guns ship out with the ideal hand-tuned trigger weight and hammer spring tension. I mean, it also comes with this fancy case over here and a bunch of super official looking certificates and such that can help you maybe justify the 3-rack butt blasting you just took. I would recommend that maybe you show these documents to your spouse when she sees the credit card statement. And I don't think it would help, but at a minimum, her visible confusion may provide enough of a diversion for you to get to your car and listen to 2 Tickets to Paradise, which is the song you wanted to listen to anyways, because I mentioned it at the very beginning of this video. But trust me, you'll know where all that money went the next time you're breaching a service door in a 737. The only other negative I have for this flawless, but for the price gun is that I think I'd like to see a white dot or perhaps a splash of orange or white paint on the blacked out front sight. You could do it yourself at home for a couple of bucks, but you could also paint bigger tits on the Mona Lisa if you own that too. The question is, are you willing to wrench on a masterwork like this? The bottom line is that this is an extraordinary gun with an extraordinary price. Whether it's worth that price is up to you. But this gun does fortunately fall in the department of, yeah, it's really fucking expensive, but it's also really fucking good. You're not paying for branding. You're not paying for clout. You're paying for Pierre hand tuning your handsome, durable heirloom revolver made out of the finest forged, treated and machined steels available with a big scoop of history on the side. Bon appetit. Guys, thanks a ton for watching this video. Thank you to Beretta for trusting a guy like me with a gun this expensive for T&E. Really sad that I'm going to have to send it back. Thanks as usual to our sponsors, Ventura Munitions, Blue Alpha, and of course Top Gun Supply, your online shooting sports superstore. So I guess if you got the means, have your driver roll around with the Rolls Royce, drive you to your nearest Beretta boutique. Check one of these out, and if you're lucky enough, maybe you'll leave with one. Thanks again, guys. Take care.